Do your days feel so overwhelmingly packed with so many tasks that you feel there's nothing left over in the end with which to create something of your own? Does it feel like this is just the way it is and it's always going to be like this? No way, my creating maven, not so. It's time to get your creating power back. It's time to mind your own business and learn to compartnermentalize. That's right, you heard me right. Compartnermentalize. By the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly what that is, why you need it, and how to use it to get your creating power back, because you need it if you're going to get paid to be you and leave a legacy you're proud of. Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your Reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create. I have a confession to make. Sometimes, a lot of the time, fine. Most of the time, I am terrible at minding my own business. It's because of this major flaw I have, which is a need for things to make sense. Specifically, I need the world and other people to make sense to me. In a way, I'm demanding that they answer to my internal logic. And when they don't, I get worked up. That's when a whole bunch of questions start firing off in my head, like, well, why did they ask it like that? And why are they asking me that? And why won't they do this? Or why won't they do that? And I would have done it this way, or I wouldn't have done it that way. On and on and on and on and round it goes until I'm just exhausted. I'm emotionally bleeding. I'm all over the place. I'm in everyone else's stuff and I can't think at all, let alone think straight on my own stuff. I can't even create. This even happened just recently, and I had to have a debrief with two friends just to scrape myself off the wall of my emotional tantrum. And what I got out at the end of those conversations, that it was so clear to me. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm the one who's off. My friend just kept asking me, so why has this person gotten your craw? Like, it's not that different from what you shared about another person doing the same thing and you weren't this worked up. Like, there's not anything that they're doing different. So what's going on with you? I honestly couldn't answer her. Maybe you identify. There are things, people, places, and conversations that you feel just trigger you out of your mind. And it not only gets you all over the place emotionally, but it also gets you all over the place when it comes to what you're doing or what you've convinced yourself you need to do. Because, the world will fall apart if you're not the one fixing all the things. If you don't bring order back to this chaos, it's all going to fall apart. So your emotional bleeding turns into boundary busting of all kinds. You're doing things you have no business doing. You're helping in places nobody asked you to help. You're inserting yourself where you were not called. You're a mess. All of this leaves you spent, sometimes even before you start your day. The fix-it list is just so astronomical. It spreads out across your weeks and months and years like an oversized blanket. It's like you catch yourself with a clipboard in one hand and a pen in the other and still another pen behind your ear as you peer over the rim of your glasses to inspect the goings-ons around you. You're running your mind, if not your entire mouth, over other people and their actions, especially when you think what they're doing directly affects you. And it's suffocating. It's snuffing out all your creating power. So you can't even think about it for even 1 second. So what to do? And yes, something absolutely must be done, but what? A quote I love that's attributed to Larry Eisenberg comes to mind, and that is, for peace of mind, retire from being the general manager of the universe. Sounds ridiculous, right? To even try such a thing, to be the general manager of the universe. But it's not so ridiculous when you watch and catch yourself in the act of actually doing it. So what to do? We've got to do 3 things. We've got to 1, contain, 2, reorient, and 3, simplify. First, this is about emotional management. It's about minimizing emotional bleed. That's what this containing thing is. So think of your body and how life-giving blood is to you when it's flowing through your blood vessels, through your arteries and your veins, around and around, keeping you alive and healthy. But what happens when there's a breakdown and the boundary of one of your blood vessels is broken and blood starts to pool into your tissues? Mind you, you're not bleeding on the outside, so what's the problem? Your blood is still in your body, right? Nah, honey, you're hemorrhaging. You're slowly dying on the inside because a life-giving thing is now out of order. It's out of its boundaries. It's no longer contained. It's the same with your emotions. When something as life-giving as your emotions gets out of order and starts running all over the place, it's no longer life-giving, but killing you slowly from the inside. This is why emotional management and essentially emotional containment is so important. Without it, how can you have and use your creating power to create the beautiful things and experiences you were born for? Because creating, right or wrong, tends to be a very emotional thing for most of us. At one point, you might feel like, yeah, I'm feeling this. And another time you're like, I'm tired. I don't have the time or energy for this. I have nothing left to give to this. And if you're going to have a fighting chance, you need to change your inner landscape on this. You're going to have to do your job and life in a way that doesn't cause you to emotionally bleed and lose your creating power. That's why every time you have that same thing come up over you that gets you into lots of internal questions and chatter and complaining because you know it all and are trying to be the manager of it all, you have to get back to containing things. Every time you get that feeling, I want you to imagine that you've popped a vessel and are now bleeding internally. This means it's time to get back to minding your own business. Your work, your real work, it's not your job or your career. It's what you create. You don't have time for this. You don't have energy to waste. It's time to get to containment. This emotional containment is the foundation of what I'm talking about today. It's the first compartmentalizing you must do as we graduate to the ultimate thing I want to talk about, which is compartnermentalization. To be better at emotional containment, you have to ask yourself more questions than you're asking of others. Instead of questioning them and their actions and motives in your mind or out loud, it's time to turn those questions on yourself. Is this my business? Is this my responsibility? Am I the person who has to give an account for this? What am I avoiding or neglecting right now that is my business by being in their business? I can hear you now. But Joy, it sounds like you're telling me to stop caring about things and people I need to care about and telling me to stay out of things that if I don't deal with those things, it'll all fall apart. No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm asking you to ask yourself some questions when you start emotionally bleeding all over the place. I'm asking you to question the assumption that you have that everything that gets to you emotionally is your business, because it's not. If you ask yourself more questions, you'll be able to minimize some of that emotional bleed so that you can see even more clearly what is your business that you want to devote your energy to. Then by all means, you can bleed all over that, whatever that thing is. 2, re-orient. Specifically, you need to flip your orientation from being centered around productivity and knocking out as many tasks as you can to one of creating one thing. In this new orientation, your focus is no longer about trying to do all the things. Success is no longer max productivity, maximum activity, and being everywhere is no longer the aim. In order to get and leverage your creating power, you have to be willing to move away from this worldview. Instead, you need to be oriented towards the one thing or experience that's in front of you right now to create with your gifts. This needs to be the focus. And 3, simplify. That is, simplify your day. What would happen if you tried to drink the ocean? Well, other than the fact that you don't want to do that because, seawater, will, of course, get you dehydrated and kill you. But, let's say you get the point of trying to drink a large body of water. You wouldn't be able to do it, right? Like you would drown. You would kill yourself. Then why are you trying to do this with your day? That's what you look like when you have an endless to-do list. And I've scrapped that. I no longer have a to-do list. I now have a one thing list. And all that is on it is the one thing I want to get done for any given day. It could be from my professional life, creating life, or personal life. It doesn't matter. It's just the one thing I want to get done for that day. The rest is cherries on top. This one thing is my priority, and not something that I want to merely make progress on, but that I want to complete, that I want to have a bow tied around by the end of the day. And you have no idea how good this practice feels. I'm telling you, it feels so good. It has helped me to cut out so much frenetic energy from my life because it forces me to slow down and focus and simplify. And I usually end up making my one thing something to do with the one thing I'm focused on creating in my life right now, which is content for you through this podcast. It's as simple as me taking one sticky note on each day and writing my one thing on it. And here's the other thing. I don't plan my one thing too far in advance. I usually pick it the night before, usually right after I've just completed my one thing for the day or on the morning of. This is something that needs to just be both simple and fresh. So don't complicate it. And I try not to keep it complicated by trying to plan too far in advance. Now I can hear you. I can hear you again, but Joy, what about the rest of my to-do list and the 1,001 things that I need to do? And if I focus on just one thing, won't this mean I won't, do any of the other things? Really? Really? This is what you're going to say to me? You know full well that's not true. You want to talk to me about your to-do list that's, first of all, not helping you, only frustrating you, and that you're not even completing. And you're just dragging it from day to day. Please, I'm not buying it. Creating is about bringing to life, about bringing forth. It's not a productivity game. It's not about going to the max or about quantity. It's about focusing on that thing that really matters most right now and always. That's why this completing one thing is so important. That's why creating one thing is so important. It helps bring you into living into this new creating orientation. While getting your creating power back is these three things: 1, contain; 2, reorient; and 3, simplify by focusing on completing one thing, it's not that easy without a little help. And this help comes from accountability partners. This is why I talk of compartnermentalization. I leverage accountability partners constantly in my personal and professional life. When it comes to work, I do a double whammy, which is to create working meetings where, along with an accountability partner, who is usually a colleague, we hammer out and complete one thing. This is how you bring all three of the principles I shared together. Containment comes in the assigned time block. The orientation is to create, and it's to simply create and bring to completion one thing. This is compartnermentalization. It's picking one moment or time block to create one thing with the support of one accountability partner. You already know my business accountability partner, Efwa, who I had on in episode 17, The Hidden Power of Deprivation. We use compartnermentalization all the time. The one way is through the input deprivation week we talked about in that episode, but another is with a daily one thing check-in. Every day we have one thing we commit to creating, and by the end of the day, we check in to report that we've done it. Simple. No fuss, no muss. I can't describe what this does to your energy. It's like being set free from productivity jail, which is a relentless taskmaster that always wants more and more and more, and is about going to the max. And once you're done, you're done. The greatest gift it's given me back is my creating power every time. And you'll find the same is true for you, because when you're able to create consistently, it inspires more creating because of the environment you've created with your life. And reframing your environment to set yourself up for being able to create more is an important and the second step of the CR.E.A.T.E framework, which I take clients through to help them to become creating mavens who are able to be paid to be themselves. To get access to the full framework, download your free PDF at reframetocreate.com if you haven't already. And if you have already downloaded it, it's a great time to go back and look at it for a refresher. So there you have it. You now know what compartnermentalization is. It's when you learn to contain, reorient, and simplify while using the help of an accountability partner to create. Now, it's your turn. This assignment is going to be the easiest one I've ever given you. Today, pick one person to be your accountability partner. Then, set a time for tomorrow to either check in or meet with them to do your creating work. Pick one thing you're going to complete creating by the end of your time together. Meet at that time to do it or check in at that time to report what you did. The end. One thing, one partner, one moment. Compartmentalize. Did you enjoy this episode? Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend and invite them to follow Reframe to Create on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher. See you soon, Creating Maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?